Recording is in progress. So I think we have, as we have a pretty good attendance here, I don't think we should, probably don't have the time in the agenda to go around and have everyone introduce themselves, but I'd at least like to acknowledge our board who are all present here. So I've had the privilege of being your 2021 chair of the board, and our vice chair is Andy Leonard. Andy, you want to say hi?
Hi, glad to be here.
And our secretary and also running our urban forest committee, Ann McCulka. And we have Janet Wagner. There she is waving. And we have Leo Silva.
Hey.
There she is helping me out with co-host duties. So, okay, our first item on the agenda is the Lake Ridge Middle School update. There's two different components to that because there's been a lot going on recently. So one is kind of an update on the proposed new athletic field there. Some of you may have attended a Zoom meeting that the school district held last Monday. We had two of our board members attend, Ann McCulka and Andy Leonard, and we had a guest speaker was able to join. We were notified today to speak about that. So Ann, can I turn that agenda item over to you, and then we'll come back to Andy for the traffic update. Ann?
She's muted.
Yeah, sorry, Alan, do you have my short outline that can you put that on the screen?
I certainly will. You want the map first or the other text?
The outline and then the map in a minute.
Okay.
Please.
Sure.
I mean, I could just start talking, I guess.
That's what you like.
So I'll just start talking. So this is, I'm going to discuss the Lake Oswego School District land use project and their development review permit that they're going to be applying for. They want to construct an artificial turf field, a running track, and a restroom / concession building. And they want to renovate lighting at Lake Ridge Middle School. So yeah, here's my outline. I was going to just review quickly what the project is about. I was going to show you the map. I was going to go over the schedule very quickly. I'll summarize some issues that people brought up. And Tony Vandenberg is here tonight, Executive Director of Project Management with the school district, and he's here to answer questions. So could we show the map?
Sure. Bring it up in a different format. Give me 1 minute because it's horizontal formats. Let's say where it is.
So the current facilities at the field it is a multi-use field. There are baseball fields and there's lighting that already exists. The facility improvements that are proposed include those three things: the multi-use field, the baseball fields, the lighting, and they're going to add a track and field, a track. It's currently being used by the Lake Oswego School District, the public, and community organizations, and that's going to continue in the future. So it'll still be accessible to all of those people. The schedule has been that there was one meeting on the September 30th. That was a pre-application conference. Two of our board members went to that. And after that, the residents who live within 300 feet of the border of the field were informed about this land use project. The second meeting took place, that was the Bryant Neighborhood Association meeting that took place just a couple of days ago on November 29th. And the purpose was to discuss the proposal with the surrounding property owners prior to applying to the city of Lake Oswego for the permit. So the meeting a couple of days ago gave the public a chance to chime in and, ask a lot of questions, and, they raised issues, and a lot of them were answered. So now at this point, the Bryant Neighborhood Association has a couple of weeks to submit concerns to the city and to the school district. After that, in December, they will submit the land use application. And then at a certain point, a few weeks later, there's going to be a DRC hearing. There will be a public notice and a sign to inform the public about it again. And so that it will go through, I think, a normal land use project process. And finally, next summer, the development should start. Just in general, it shouldn't impact traffic significantly. They're going to try to, minimize that as much as possible. And no trees are going to be cut down, and they're going to be planting trees. I just want to go over some of the issues very quickly, so you guys know what other people have brought up. So I'll just go through it really quick. The shape of the track is kind of unusual. And, I was kind of questioning, me and some other people are kind of questioning why that is. And also we were wondering, is it really necessary to cover such a big area with artificial turf? Also, dogs aren't going to be allowed to run off leash. Apparently, they're not allowed to do that right now anyway, but nobody's really enforcing it. But since it's going to be an artificial turf area to keep it, cleaner, I guess that's why they don't want dogs running around there. We're wondering about, the cleanliness of it, how often will it be cleaned? And there was an issue about just the large footprint. Oh, and also the setback from the homes on the south end, it's only going to be 18 feet. The track is 18 feet from the edge of the lots. So there's going to be a bit of a privacy issue. And some residents, or one resident mentioned that they would like to have a privacy fence that's 7 feet tall so that, people can't look into their yard. There's also going to be a change in the grading. So it's possible that the field will be a little bit higher on the south side of the field. So it'll be easier for people to look over the current fences, maybe. A couple of other issues that came up was light mitigation of the, how much light are those new field lights going to produce, and the noise issues. I'm kind of wondering if there's going to be new speakers, and are they going to be bigger and louder, and what impact will that have on neighbors? Let's see, I think there was one, that was about it. Oh, there's cell tower. Questions came up about the cell tower, and also the environmental impact of the artificial turf with chemicals. Is it recyclable? What impact will it have on, animals, wildlife? And also discussed was water runoff. So if anybody here today has any questions, I'm sure Tony would love to answer them. I know he's here, I saw him.
Just to be clear, were you just saying a nice thing, or did you actively mean right now? If anybody has questions, please speak up.
Yeah, Tony can.
I have a question. This is Anita Moroz. I'm looking at your map, and I'm wondering which part of that land is Ella's school district property and which part is actually park property. Because I'm seeing this track going almost to the edge of the tennis court area. And I know part of that is city parks property and part of that land is school district property.
Yeah, the land, the entire property belongs to the school district. The agreement that exists with the tennis courts is a longstanding agreement for usage and maintenance. We're well within any boundary of that. And the existing fields, though we have an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Lake Oswego for various activities that occur on our sites that impose maintenance and rental of facilities and things like that. This facility is currently under our control and within our property.
Tony, I think in the presentation at the meeting last week, you said that construction will be next summer and that there should be minimal impact on the Jean Road and other areas.
Yeah, we anticipate some activities that are recently coming to a close in the city of Lake Oswego will start to minimize some of the traffic impacts that are being experienced now. And our activities, much of the activities will be happening on site. We're trying to balance the site, so removal of materials will be hopefully as minimal as possible. So by that, what I mean is we're kind of lowering a portion of the site and leveling out the site. As you walk out there, you can kind of see how the grade takes a gradual slope down towards the kind of southeast corner. And we'll be kind of cutting that and creating a crown in the middle and creating a nice level playing surface.
Question, Anthony. Didn't make it to one of the meetings, but can you talk a little bit about the artificial turf? Because my family uses the field a lot. And in theory, I like real grass. However, it has not generally been very well maintained, presumably because it's a tremendous footprint. So I'm not sure how to feel about artificial turf versus real grass. I'm sure you guys thought a lot about like the environmental impacts, and I know less grass might be bad, but we'll use less water. Like, what's the general calculus there on how that's going to impact the environment, and why did you make the decision this way? Or you, whoever.
Sure. There has been a long conversation that has occurred over many years about the shortage of artificial turf that would allow for wet weather play in the early spring months when baseball and softball, soccer, a lot of sports kind of kick off during that time frame. We still have a lot of water happening, and we haven't been able to get out, treat, aerate, do a lot of things on our natural fields. Artificial turf allows us to be active on those areas, even during wet weather. So they play, and they can play during small rain events, right after a rain event, and it adds a lot of versatility to allow for playing. As far as the maintenance goes, the turf fields, artificial turf fields do get maintained. They have probably a much less maintenance requirement than we would with natural turf. Of course, there's no mowing of those fields, and the fields, they have a certain amount of padding depending on the type of artificial turf that you get. It's all drained, so there's drainage. This entire surface that you see on the map is all the water that comes onto that will be treated, retained, and then ultimately discharged offsite, so it will not just sheet onto adjacent properties as it currently does. The soils out at this site, as you may know, are really quite awful. We did a significant amount of work to stabilize the subgrade of the new building, and basically what the soil does here is it basically retains that water. So saturation comes very early in the season and water begins to sheet. Obviously, this will take care of that through the sub-base areas and materials that are put in.
So you talked about the drainage. Does that include the drainage that goes off onto Deer Brush?
Deer Brush is to the south, or is that the one on the east, the access
east.
road?
That's on
Yeah,
the
so
east.
Yeah, so all of the water that exists within that red track area will kind of be retained within the site. So what you won't experience is water sheeting down the grade towards those properties on the east and to the south. There's an area drain that will exist in the grass area that will pick up some additional water that might exist between the artificial turf area and the track at the south. And I think we have a couple of drains that we're proposing on the edge. So the overall area is dramatically reduced to water that could eventually sheet into a property once we get to that saturation point.
I have a question. There's a historical marker there right next to the tennis courts, and there's that pear tree that's about 100 years old. What is, with the track so close, what is it going to do to that?
It won't affect it. The existing monument is still there. The tree is still there.
Yes.
And we went to some length to make sure that we did not impact it while we were doing our improvements with regards to the middle school. So it's been fully documented. It stays there and it exists to this day. It will continue to be there.
Okay.
Question.
Yes.
I live south in Bryant Woods, homeowner association, and I have real concerns about this whole thing from being here for 40 some years and knowing what the impact has been on the parking and the people that live on Indian Creek for all those years with those current fields we have. This afternoon, I happened to go out that way at 3 o'clock, and I will guarantee you, you could not have got the fire truck down Indian Creek with the way people park and the way kids run across the street. And there was just, I had a hard time getting my medium-sized pickup truck between the cars on Indian Creek because people just don't know how to park. And there's not enough parking and you're not adding anything. I really have a problem. I'm going to have to talk to the homeowners association people and see what they've done about this with regards to my neighbor who I think was on that meeting. He's suggesting that we build a fence across there. I don't know how that would work, but I don't think you guys have thought anything about the impact in the neighborhood south.
I'm sorry you feel like that. We actually have thought about that quite a bit, as well as our surrounding neighborhoods. Connectivity to the site is important, which is why there is a path that exists there, as well as a path that's on the southwest corner of the property we've retained. There have been some notes, and we do have our director of safety and security on the call as well that would attest to some of the comments that we received during a safety audit of our district facilities that suggest that we should fence our entire properties 100% all the way around, keep the public out. Nobody's allowed into our properties without checking into the offices and getting cleared. We don't want to do that. This neighborhood enjoys the site. We want them to be able to come through the property. They have been generally respectful of our property. And we want them to be able to feel like this is a community place as well. We don't intend on closing off the access to the park if that's what's being suggested. As far as the traffic goes, we have put a lot of thought in that. We did do a pretty significant traffic study. This new field does not change the usage of the property, those particular fields. If anything, it adds more opportunity for our student athletes and their functions as they exist in the existing facility. The new parking lot has dramatically improved circulation, both with traffic on Jean Road, as well as parents driving up through surrounding neighborhoods to drop off their kids to obtain a quick exit out to go back into to their office or wherever they're going afterwards. So we have received a bunch of good feedback with the drop-off loop that we have. And when we do have large events, which are relatively rare, but when we have things like back to school night, or if there's some sort of large sporting event, we have received authorization to use our bus drop-off area, which is directly off of Jean Road, as additional parking. There are some things that we might be able to talk to the city about. If an issue does exist about possibly putting up some signage we've done in other areas near high schools, for example. We've worked with the city to include no parking signs, things like that.
Well, we
Some of
don't,
which,
we
you
don't
know,
want,
is out of
we don't
our-
want no parking signs with regards to the fact that we have our neighbors live there and park there and have visitors. And one point in time, years ago, there was talk about a permit process where you'd be no parking unless you had a permit. Well, then if you've got a visitor that comes from out of town, doesn't have a permit on his car, it just gets so cumbersome. And you obviously, when you talk about the loop working, you weren't there at 3 o'clock this afternoon, I guarantee you that. Jean Road was backed up past the signal light at Bryant. You couldn't get out of Deer Brush onto Bryant because it was backed up that far.
It's
And
always like that.
it's
every
always like
single
that,
day.
yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
Um,
we can, speaking of that, we cannot get out of our cul-de-sac on Deer Brush. Many times I avoid leaving the house when I know the kids are getting in and out of school because it's impossible and people don't let you through. And turning left off of Bryant onto the short Deer Brush there where the cul-de-sacs are, it's
Impossible.
impossible. And I could see the traffic is backed up all the way
Up to Royce.
up to Royce or almost to the bridge.
Folks, I think we're straying into the next sub-agenda topic of the traffic update. Let's, if there's any more questions on the athletic.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, because Tony has to leave too.
and then,
I just have a quick point. What about, if I don't live close to the school, I'm on the outskirts of the Bryant neighborhood, but I would have concerns with the carcinogens of, the artificial turf to live nearby it. I just want to get that point out.
Understood. And we have received some comments like that already. We have responded, and we will be addressing some of the concerns that were brought up in our previous meeting. I do appreciate your concerns, and we are listening. I want you all to understand that you can send me questions, you can send concerns. Ideally, you can send them through your neighborhood association chair, and they can be routed to me, so we have a consistent trail of documentation. I'm happy to answer these questions as we go forward.
I have a question about, can you list all of the things on the agenda? It's leveling, it's adding a track, it's adding a restroom, concessions, and what else?
There are some amenities that will be setting. So there's some fencing that exists for the backstops. The dugouts that are there will be replacing in kind. The rubberized track surface that you see is a very similar product to what we have at our high schools. There's a 3-lane that goes around the big loop, and then you can see that there's some pedestrian hardscaping, so paving that will bring people to the site for gathering areas and such during events.
Okay, and then was there talk of a cell tower as well?
There is an existing cell tower that is at the south end of the site, pretty much in the middle of that straightaway of the track. It is leased from the district, the property where the cell tower exists. The current duration of the lease goes out to 2025.
Okay, and then the tennis courts would stay as they are now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Then could you also include the cost analysis of it, that, because I know up at Lake Ridge, they're replacing the track already. So the longevity of the AstroTurf, the longevity of that, how often does it have to be replaced and stuff, and the cost analysis of that?
Absolutely. So we're still waiting for receipt of an updated cost analysis. Something like this could be in the range of 3 million plus, depending on how far we take it, including all the lights and everything. The turf itself lasts about 10 years, depending on usage. And then there's carpet replacement. So replacing just the top is much less expensive than it would be to do the initial installation.
Now, is this something that the parties of sports teams and other outside groups usage? Is the money coming from them or taxpayers?
The money is coming from, or would be coming from, remaining funds of the 2017 bond program from interest earnings and bond premium that was realized from the sale of the application bonds. So what that means.
Taxpayers.
And it sounds like future bonds
Yeah.
to continue to pay for it.
Yeah, so I think I'm liking just grass that gets mowed.
Hold on, you have a question?
Spend.
I had one earlier and then I went ahead and before getting called on, I asked my question. I do have one more quick question though. The fields to the left of the diagram that are white, those would be non-turf fields. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay, any last questions for Tony? I think we're happy to be a conduit for any comments from our residents to the school district, and Tony always happy to disseminate information to our emailing list that you may have. We did post the document that was referred to in last Monday's school district meeting. That's available on our website for those that are interested. More detailed planning document, and you can access that on our website where you registered by clicking on the agenda and the meeting materials. You'll see it there.
Comment?
I had a question about whether the artificial turf, how sustainable is it? Is it made from microplastics or is the one you're looking at made from something else?
We're still determining the exact product that we're going to be including in our specifications, but there are products that we're exploring that are made out of recycled material, also including some of the infill material that would be used. So we are exploring those options.
Is there an opportunity to, because I know when you do artificial turf, you put down a huge base layer, sort of like when you're putting down paving, that actually helps out with the drainage because of the artificial turf. Is there some reason why you couldn't do that and then plant grass over it so that it's better drainage and the fields aren't as saturated because you've increased?
Mhm.
I mean, has anybody looked at doing that rather than artificial turf that has to be replaced in 10 years?
Yeah, and we have done that on a number of our fields. The fact remains that the artificial turf does drain really, really well. It's basically the grass product with a mesh fabric underneath that goes into a sand gravel base that gets collected through a series of pipes and then gets treated further before it gets retained and discharged. So it happens much faster. The drainage systems that you are talking about have installed on a number of sites. We have them at various schools, and they do work for a while, but they don't allow for the entire field to be generally dry in a shorter period of time like artificial turf, and ability still suffers the same consequences when you're playing on it wet.
Okay, thank you.
Comment, please.
Go ahead.
Tony, I didn't want to leave you with the idea that those of us from Bryant Woods Homeowners Association down south are against this at all, because we have to keep in mind that pathway that runs across our park and up to the school, that was put in by Bryant Woods Homeowners Association. It didn't exist before we put our new park in. And when that fence went up, the pathway was put in at the same time. So we're not against it. We just know what the impact has been on our neighborhood for the last few years with the way it is now. And it's bad. I'll tell you right now, when you come up Indian Creek from Deerbrush in the fall with the sun setting and you got little kids running across the street, I'm surprised we have not had an incident because you can't see. And the people that park there and are coming down for their baseball bats and their gloves and their kids running out in front, I'm really surprised. But then you want to add more to it for more during the total year. It scares me.
I mean, in reality, we're actually removing one of the fields that exists out there. We're adding more amenities that are specific to student sports, but we're removing one of the small baseball fields that exist. And it'll be questionable whether or not both could be played, but you know, I understand the concern. You know, our hope with the new school and our principal, Dr. Schultz, continues to broadcast this message to his parents. We have discussions, the city has discussions with our youth sports groups that are pseudo-affiliated with the school district and in our community, that they should be parking on our property. It is open for business. It is very easy to park. It is directly adjacent, and it's not necessary to park down on Indian Creek. We hope that people can continue to be conditioned to do so.
When you look at the map and you take how far it is from Indian Creek to the dugouts, as far as your parking lot to the dugouts, it's not going to stop. The guy that's carrying a bag full of bats and balls and kids and a whole bit is not going to park up at the parking lot to school. He's going to park as close as he can, and that's Indian Creek.
Ann and Tony, can you remind us, Ann, I think you said there's a comment period for in the next couple of weeks. Can you?
Yeah.
Kind of continue this.
Well, it's a comment period for the neighborhood association, but so residents would have to tell us what their concerns are, and then we would write it up, I guess, and send it.
Yes, comments can be sent directly to the planner at City of Lake Oswego. All of that information is in the previous meeting that we held with the neighborhood association. That would be the way to get it into a record.
I just want to clarify one question that you answered, make sure I understood it correctly. Somebody earlier was asking about the funding. Am I understanding correctly? So all the funding for this project, as it is right now, has already been collected or is already approved to be collected as part of the bonds project. If it doesn't go to this project, it will go to something else. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then, so the only potential financial impact on this point is in the future, once this is done, is this perhaps going to be more expensive to maintain than what's currently there? Is that accurate?
I don't know if it would be more expensive to maintain, to be honest.
Oh, I'm not
I
saying
mean,
it would be.
actually
I'm saying that's the
Yeah.
impact, is maybe it will be, maybe it won't be. I'm sure you guys will think about that, but otherwise we
Yeah.
should not expect any new tax bills because of this.
No, this is not new. In fact, this is based on remaining funds after all of the obligations were met based on the 2017 bond program. Now we have a new 2021 bond program that we're launching to replace 2 new schools and do a whole bunch of other improvements. This is what I like to kind of refer to as icing on the cake. Additional development or final development of what we had hoped we'd be able to do at the beginning of the development for the new middle school. Early plans indicated we would do it. However, market at the time was telling us you probably can't afford it. As we worked through the bond, completed all of our work, realized some good savings along the way, we're able to take a lot of our projects much further and have some money left over. This is the money that's left over to bring another asset to our district and our community.
Fantastic. Well, I guess the only comment I would add is I'm glad that they're trying to reinvest those funds in our area, because I'm sure there are a lot of competing interests.
Regarding the funding, this new bond that was passed, is the money guaranteed? Because as we all know, past history shows the schools are never completed on budget or on time. So they're going to be looking for more money, and they're going to take the money that you are expecting.
The funding for the current 2021 bond has been approved by voters. The funding will become available. We go through a process in which we engage with our financial advisors and that leads to the sale of the bonds, which occurs sometime in the spring. At that point, we'll have some understanding of the sale amount, which will certainly not be below. It never is. It's always above. It's just a question of how much above following a sale in a competitive market. We also, as part of the 21 program, received a $4 million grant from the state that will be used on additional enhancements in the district. It is a nice little piece to add to the projects.
Tony, I want to thank you again for taking the time to join us and field questions. And I would really encourage anyone who has a continued interest to take advantage of the comment period and either directly, as you said, to the planner, or you can always send it to us and we will forward it on your behalf, or you can send it to both of us. But I think this is really the time to make your voices heard beyond.
It's my pleasure.
Sure. Thanks again.
I appreciate your time, and please, feel free to reach out. And Neighborhood Association has my information, and however you want to.
Could I ask a question about the 4 million you're getting from the state? I've worked in education in the past, and my understanding of the money, the grants from the state, was not intended originally to provide extras, but was supposed to lower our own costs through help from the state, but not to provide icing on the cake as you're speaking. So I'm a little concerned.
Yeah, sorry.
District
That's not
is
what
looking that the district is looking at charging us the full amount of everything and then looking at the state grant as icing on the cake. That's a little concerning to me.
We're talking about two different bond programs here. The 2021 bond program received the Oregon School Construction Matching Grant. So it's an improvement grant that matches a district's request for a bond. So it's an additional $4 million to go towards additional improvements for that particular bond program. That's the 2021 program. The funding that would fund this project is funds that remain from the 2017 bond program.
Right, I understand that, but earlier, just a few moments ago, you talked about that little extra from the state grant that provided extra money for additional projects. And I'm a little bit curious as to why that $4 million is looked at as extra money when it originally was an intention of helping to fund projects that you had planned. I'm just trying to understand how the district is looking at money and the way it's asking for taxes and the way it's creating its bond plans. And the $4 million, because in your advertisements about the bond, you made it very clear that the bond had to pass in order to get that $4 million. And so what was your original intent for the use of the $4 million from the state? That's the bottom line I'm asking you right now.
Yeah, so the additional $4 million, the intent very early on in some of our other publications, we talked about that it would go towards additional enhancements at our high schools for our STEM and CTE programs. So part of this program will bring funding to enhance our labs at our high schools, bring additional opportunities for career technical education, experience in industry, and bring a much needed improvements that much further.
So my understanding that the $4 million was supposed to be for construction money. That's not sounding like construction money.
Yes, it is actually what we're constructing in the buildings. We're renovating spaces within our existing facilities.
Okay, I just feel like we're having to drag that out of you. Where is that put into your
You
plan?
absolutely do not have to drag it out of me at all. I am
All right, where
very
is
open.
where is that in the plans? Was that in the original plans that we voted on? Because I don't remember seeing it, so maybe I missed it.
The
Colin, can I
matching,
interject that you could try to take this offline somehow so we can move the meeting forward? And there's a way to
Yeah.
answer your question.
I'm just trying to ask the school district some questions about its own accountability that would affect and benefit you as a resident here. But if you're not interested in that, that's fine.
I want to get you the answer.
Go forward.
All right.
I'm happy to field the question as received.
Want to respond? And then we'll move on. Tony? Tony, did you say you wanted to respond?
I'm happy to respond. It sounded like you wanted to move to the next thing, but if you want me to keep talking about the matching funds that we received in the recent bond,
You want to give a quick,
I can.
very quick summary? A quick answer?
Yeah, I feel like I just talked about it, but we did receive a $4 million grant from the state following the passage of our most recent 2021 bond program. The funds are currently positioned to be used for additional enhancements to our high school labs, CTE programs at our high schools.
Does that have anything to do with this track project?
Has absolutely nothing to do with this track project.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you very much again, Tony.
All right, feel free to send questions if you have them. I also have a phone number if people want to call.
Thank you. Andy?
Have a great night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy,
I'd like to introduce John Park, who's the Security and Safety Administrator for the school district. I've been really pleased. John has worked closely with us to try and address the many issues that we've seen around the school with the heavy traffic that we have, that there's some real reasons for this that are he'll explain, and how the things are changing. We've also been getting support from Kurt Schultz, the school principal, and the school resource officer as well. So John and myself and some of the residents have walked around, observed the traffic situation, and I'll turn it over to him to give you an overview of what he sees as some solutions that are possible, and also take your questions and comments and suggestions. John?
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, I guess I'll start by saying I have gotten a few calls from Andy. I've gotten calls from neighborhood associations across the district, and so I would go out and we would walk around and try to come up with solutions for the current problems. And I'm curious to hear from some of you about whether or not you think it's much worse than it was prior to the new school. There are a couple reasons, as Andy mentioned, that I'll bring up. I've been really focused on Gene Way, and that's where I've spent most of my time. But I understand there might be some concerns, and I'd like to hear what those are, and I could get back on the south end and other areas that you might bring up tonight. So currently, I'll just say that I worked at Waluga Junior High probably 7 or 8 years ago, and have been in the community as a district employee for 20 years, and I've seen the drop off and the pickup at Waluga, and I know that the traffic would right at the pickup time would come to a stop, and traffic would not flow. What I'm encouraged to see now is that although as parents are coming to pick up their kids, they do spill out onto Gene Road about in two directions. And I wasn't there today, and for some reason I hear that the early release day, which is Thursday, is much worse, and I'm not exactly sure why. I'll have to observe it. The days that I've been out to Lake Ridge Middle School, although there are some cars that are spilling out onto the road, there's enough room for traffic to flow in both directions. not at a fast rate, which it shouldn't be at any time during the school day, or especially when kids are out there. And I think it seems like there's about 10 cars that are turning right on into the school. And then there's those cars that line up on the left-hand turn lane. When I was there, there was about 10 cars there waiting. And then as soon as school starts, it seems to clear out in about 15 minutes. And clear out, by clear out, I mean, there's no more cars on the road. There's still cars that are in the loop picking up their kids. So that looks like it's working pretty good. I really can't speak about Deerbrush, but I want to hear your concerns and where else I need to focus my attention.
I have a thought. I go to work on Bryant, heading south, where Lake Ridge Junior High would be on my right. And I feel sorry for those Deerbrush folks. So when I'm at the stoplight, parents, because they're rushing to get their kids to school, they block the intersection every time. Like when they're making their left-hand turn onto Jean Road, and it's just a quagmire. I thought I was so excited to get the light signals there, because my daughter went to Bryant when I was at elementary school. Then she was at Lake Ridge. She was the first 6th grade class to go to Lake Ridge. And I live off of Lakeview. Instead of going down Bryant, which is a quicker route for me, I would always go around to Hookington to Jean Road when I used to drop her off, just to avoid crossing traffic to go into the school. But now that there's a signal, parents don't want to wait, and there's 2 or 3 cars they'll turn on a red light and they're blocking the whole intersection there. It's terrible, and I can't imagine living off of Deerbrush in that area. That would send me into I would go cuckoo.
So does that same situation occur in the PM too, or is that just a morning thing?
It's in the PM school.
Yeah, for me, it's the morning when I'm heading to work to West Lynn through the back roads. So it's morning, the parents go through the red light, they don't care. And then they block the traffic until cars move ahead. And so it's just blocking traffic. No one can go anywhere.
So there's a wall of cars that should not be there on the red light.
I have a question when I can ask one.
Yeah.
There at Jean Road and Bryant, where the fire station is, if there's a fire and an emergency at the end of school, when they're getting out, that fire truck is not going to be able to get out of the fire station. Hillway and Shallot, the parents are parking all the way down. If there's an emergency down in Shallot or Hillway down at the end, the fire truck's not going to be able to get down there because parents are parked all the way around, and they don't care how they park or who they park in front of. And there's no way that they can get down there, and nobody seems to pay any attention to it.
So you're talking right in front of the fire station?
The fire station at the end of school, where you got the turns, if there's a fire, the fire trucks are not going to be able to get out of there.
Now, has that condition gotten worse with the new school?
Yes.
Yes.
So when Waluga was there a few years ago, where the old building was, you're saying the fire station was not blocked by traffic?
No.
Yes, it was.
I've lived here since '86.
On different. Well, I want to interject a little bit. So I have a lot of family members with junior high children this year in this district. And basically, I do think that we had I don't know, I would say for the beginning of the year, we had maybe a little bit of a gap where things were not as severe. But because once the bus exposure rule came out, where a child who is unvaccinated that is even masked on a bus, found out to be with a COVID positive student, must quarantine for 10 days. And the bus schedules were a mess. I know tons of people, even from over in the Hallinan area, they would normally bus and they're driving their children now. So I feel like comparing pre-new school to old school is a little hard this year, because I think we just had a ton more busers in the old school. And now that this opened, it opened at the time of the new rules, and it's driving a lot more personal delivery and personal pickup parents because they don't want to afford. I'm a parent of elementary kids myself. They can't afford a 10-day of a kid home. You know, they can't miss work.
Actually,
So
I think it's just as it's always been terrible, and it's just with, I think the signal made it worse, honestly, because of people blocking traffic.
yeah, I do think the
yeah.
signal thing is correct. Yes, I avoid
Yeah.
turning off Deerbrush. I avoid going
Yeah.
north in this neighborhood at those times of day.
And
But I think we might have seen, I guess my comment is just that we might have seen an improvement with this design had this not been for a pandemic busing dynamic. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a
I didn't
great-
actually-
John, could you give perspective on the buses? Because I think
Yeah,
that's-
Hey, folks, I'm sorry, I had to mute everyone for just a sec. This is obviously the feature topic in our agenda, but I think we'll have a better quality discussion if we could use the raise your hand feature. And I'll call on people so that we can really understand each person's comment and not risk talking over each other. I see Jonah Massey.
Oh. Yes, I've lived here over 20 years. On almost to the right at the corner of Jeanway and Bryant and Shallot Way, Jeanway and Shallot Way. It's so much worse. We have people blocking our driveways, and it's mostly at the end of the day, not at the beginning of the day. They're turning around in our driveways constantly. I've never seen anything like this. I know part of it is the busing situation, but I'm wondering if we have not, if the drop off is not working for people or the pickup is not working for people at the school.
well,
And, yeah.
I-
Mr. Park, do you have some, comment about that?
it is actually very difficult to know whether or not what was designed is working. And interesting comment about that you think that this traffic signal, and I'm talking about at Bryant and Jean, made it worse, because that's possible, but it's hard to say. I think the hope would be that it would make it better if cars aren't stopping when they're supposed to and just blocking traffic. Then that's something that we can get some help from LOPD to do some enforcement there for a while. But the one thing that I do want to mention is that there's a design that was supposed to be able to accommodate the normal traffic flow and keep traffic moving on the roads around the school. But one of the parents just brought up that a lot of parents aren't putting their kids on the bus because of the quarantine issues. If they, it was one of those situations where one kid that tests positive for COVID could send an entire bus of kids home for 10 days. And that rule has recently relaxed just a bit. So it's not that it wouldn't be quite as severe. And we started the year with just probably less than half of the drivers we needed, and many quit that first week of school. And so we were struggling. We were putting multiple routes on a bus, and so we've been struggling since school started to get drivers, and we currently have 14 drivers that are in the process of being trained. It's quite a long process from the time you're hired to the time you can actually be in a bus. You do need to do quite a lot of driver testing and also classroom instruction. and then the actual bus training. So it takes a while. We've got 14 drivers that are going to be coming online in the next couple of weeks. That will help. And then also getting parents to let their kids ride the bus again. It could, you know, those two things could significantly improve it, but we still want to hear where the trouble spots are. And it sounds like from your question that you just asked, and I want to clarify it, is it parents that are just come up, park, and are waiting for their kids, and then they're just filling in whatever space is available for those several minutes before and right after school?
Yes, they're waiting for their kids. But they often come very early, so they're here, you know, sometimes a half hour. They're just sitting there. And so our whole street, Charlotte Way and Hill Way, one up from us, are all filled with cars. 4 p.m. is like the peak, definitely, of the cars. And yes, they do park across our driveway. If you walk out, they will generally leave if you ask them, but and they're constantly turning around in everyone's driveway.
I
Not
can see that. I can
necessarily, yeah.
That sounds very frustrating.
It's bad.
We live off of Deer Brush on Lake Haven. And historically, when they changed the traffic pattern in fall 2008, when Waluga became Lake Ridge Junior High and stuff, they changed the traffic pattern, and the incoming traffic into the pickup was at the driveway that's somewhat across the street from the fire station. It caused an immediate traffic problem on Bryant all the way to Royce and on Jean, blocking, like the one person said before, the driveway to the fire station, where I have heard the firemen tell people over their loudspeaker to get out of the way. So,
Okay, we've got Lynn Larson with her hand up, and then William DeBure, and then Olava, and Anita, if you want to come back after that, you're welcome to. Lynn, unmute and ask your question.
I didn't quite understand the Deer Brush comment that, go ahead.
this is Anita. I was talking about the traffic problems and along Deer Brush. And I wanted to know, at that time in 2008, when the school decided to make that traffic pattern change, was there any kind of traffic study done? Because I don't believe there was.
And so in 2008, it went from not noticeable to suddenly you definitely noticed traffic on Deer Brush.
Well, what they did was they changed the traffic pattern from the entrance into the parking and drop off. They changed the entrance to be the driveway that's closest to Bryant. It used to be there was a central driveway that you had to enter on that was farther down towards like where the middle of both schools at the time were. And the driveway entered to the Bryant parking lot was all the way farther down, farther west. So when they changed that traffic pattern where everybody had to go through that most eastern driveway, that's when everything got screwed up as far as exterior traffic, the external traffic pattern. And I wanted to know, was there ever a traffic study done before they made that change? Because now that's what you have is the same pattern that they created in 2008.
I have no idea. I'd have to go back and talk to people that were in the district at that time. But I was trying to think what happened in 2008. 2008, if you recall, there was Bryan Elementary there on that property, and it was right next to Waluga Junior High. And Bryant closed for a period of a few years. And then what they did in 2008 was that they made the junior high a middle school. So they included the sixth graders and the population.
The school didn't close. They just moved. They just reconfigured. They used the campus still, the Bryant campus, but it was sixth through eighth grade. They just changed, but they never closed the school.
The elementary school was closed for a few years.
Yeah, they closed the elementary faction of it, but the actual building was still being utilized as
That's
part
exactly
of
what
the
I
new
said,
junior
Anita.
high school.
John and Anita, I'm sorry, but we have people trying to follow the process with their hands raised, and really want to respect that. So I want to go on to Lynn Larson, who has had her hand up patiently for quite a while. And Anita, if you want to come back to this, please use the raise your hand feature. So we have Lynn, and then we have William DeBure, and then we have Olava after that. So we have 3 people patiently waiting to ask their question.
Thank you. I live on Hill Way, and I live 2 houses in from Jean. So I get a lot of the traffic issues in front of my house. So I have people blocking my driveway on a regular basis. I've asked them to move. When I finally got the answer that I'm not really parked in your driveway because I'm sitting in my car, I got done talking, and now I take pictures. So I would be more than happy to share my collection of pictures of cars with license plates parked in front of my driveway. And maybe someone can do something about that. I almost got hit in my driveway once with a nice SUV that came whipping around to turn around in my driveway. I have people regularly walking through my yard rather than the street. I've had kids assemble in my driveway waiting for their parents to pick them up. I've had a car pull into my driveway and wait for their kids to load. So this is an ongoing problem, and it's so much worse than before the middle school was built. I have a couple suggestions. One is you would be more than welcome to come to my house, park in front of my house, 3:30 to 4 in the afternoon, other than early release day, and experience it for yourself. I would recommend doing that for a week to get a feel for it. I would also suggest maybe the city could install car counters so that, as they're driven over, we get an accurate count of the number of cars. Maybe do that for a week during the school, do it for a week during break so you can compare how many cars are on that street without the school, how many cars are on the street with the school. So that'll give you a pretty accurate understanding of what we're experiencing on a daily basis. Now, for me on Hill, morning is not an issue, but it's the afternoon and it's daily. It doesn't change. And the concerns about fire trucks coming through are true. There's no way in the world. I can't even get out of my driveway when the school is letting out. I just plan on either staying home or not coming home. So it's, in my opinion, it's out of control. But like I said, I've got quite a few pictures. So if you want to give me an email address, I'd be more than happy to email them to you.
No, I was actually there 2 days ago, and I did see cars lined up on Hill, both going in the same direction on both sides of the street, waiting for their kids. And I don't have an explanation of why that might have gotten worse with the new school. That there was a crosswalk there, and now there isn't. So
there was only
although
a
it doesn't
temporary
stop kids from
crosswalk.
crossing, they still cross there, and I really would like to see that crosswalk go back there, because there's so many kids going across without the crosswalk. I don't have any doubt that you have cars waiting to pick up their kids there. And other than those that are parked legally, they should not be, obviously shouldn't be on blocking anybody's driveway.
I agree. So what do we do about it?
Well, I guess we could do some enforcement for a little while and see if that gets people to change their pattern.
They do. The one day that we had a policeman sitting on Hill, they were very well behaved. But it was only one day, and then they go back to their old patterns.
Well, I think we need to continue doing that, and let's hope that when we get back to a normal traffic pattern and we get kids riding the bus and we get drivers, that the pressure on that street and the others will subside. At least somewhat. It should go. There's no reason why it wouldn't go back to this what you experienced prior to the new school. The population is the same, and it's just.
But prior, you had two schools. You had the junior high and you had Bryant. And those kids were on different schedules. So they weren't all getting out at exactly the same time.
Not after 2008. In 2008, the Bryant became it became a middle school, and they brought sixth graders in where it was just seventh and eighth. The population of the middle school went from about 500 up to 8 something when they added the sixth grade, and the sixth graders used those pods that were the old Bryant Elementary School. And that's when the parking lot got reconfigured, because there wasn't 2 schools coming in 2 different times. And that sounded like it caused a situation to evolve on Deer Brush for some reason.
All right. Thank you, Lynn, very much. William, you're next up, and Olava, and then I think you have it hand up too.
Two comments. One, we talked about the fire trucks and being there today at 3 o'clock. You got to remember that fire truck is a ladder truck. It doesn't come out and turn from the driveway into the lane of traffic like your pickup truck does. Those cars that are parked there, they got to move big time, and a lot of them have to move to let that truck get out, and it's not going to happen. We also heard a little comment about how the traffic pattern changed when the signal light went in at Bryant and Jean. Wait till the signal light goes in at Jean and Pilkington, and that's going to even add more problems to the whole thing that I don't think the school has considered yet. Sorry, that's me.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if the school knows about a traffic light going in. I would think that some traffic studies are being done prior to decisions about traffic lights. And I honestly don't know enough about it to comment with any authority on whether or not the signals increase or decrease traffic. But that could have been a mistake, and maybe if it's creating a problem, maybe it'll give us leverage, us, the community, the school, and the local community, to change back to something that would work better.
Well, the school should know about it, because my understanding was it was proposed because of the idea of putting the bus barn down on Lakeview.
Oh, at Pilkington? Well,
yeah. And the signal light groups cars together because they back up to the signal light, and then you let them go. And you let all those go, then the ones making the left turn go. It's the same at Bryant. You come out here and try to drive down Deer Brush and get out on Bryant. You can't do it.
I'm going to need to spend some time on Deer Brush. I keep hearing that, and I haven't been there during the drop off or the arrival.
So Olava, would want to unmute and ask your question?
Yes, thank you. I don't know if I said this earlier, but I wanted to thank you for being present, John. In thinking about the flow and what I encounter, some days on Deer Brush to drive north and try to take a left and head toward Bryant, take a left onto Bryant, you would encounter also parents just parking there. Lately, that has not been as bad, and I'm not sure if someone was policing it for a while and then they got out of that pattern, but for a while that was fairly heavy, of parents just kind of having their kids walk down to the Deer Brush intersection with Bryant to get in their cars. 2 things that come to my mind as far as kind of compounding problems. So if you're coming toward the junior high from Pilkington, to be a car that might even be trying to pick up, it's kind of laborious, and even to get through, because there are a lot of pedestrian stops going on. But not only that, the cars coming out of the junior high heading west onto Jean definitely create an obstacle, because you've got cars trying to turn in, cars trying to take a left, and then the people that are maybe trying to take a right off of Jean into the school. It has crossed my mind that if there could be a forced right-hand turn, I don't know if that would help things, or, I don't know. It just seems like it's unfortunate that it's all culminating right there, because that also helps back up that light dynamic. So to take a left at certain times off of Deer Brush onto Bryant is certainly like impossible. I've even gone across traffic to then wait on the Deer Brush on the north side of Bryant. There's a little one block road called Deer Brush as well, to just take a right onto Bryant to get out of here, because you're just kind of stuck. And this is when I haven't realized the time. Otherwise I would totally avoid and go all the way around to Pilkington. But just that dynamic of not only the kids crossing to probably get to maybe cars waiting for them on Hill and Shallot Way, but then also the people trying to left-hand turn to head west on Jean out of the school. I just don't know if during certain hours there could be a forced, you must just exit to the right, if that would kind of improve anything. It would help the cars coming from that intersection light have maybe a smoother turn in where they're only oncoming traffic they're clearing and not trying to let people take a westward turn onto Jean. I don't know. I just wanted to mention those few things as ideas or things that come to my mind as something to mitigate. I don't know.
Yeah,
I know it's really rough.
It's an interesting possible solution. There are things like that happen. And it could relieve some of the pressure, at least some of the traffic that builds up right in front of the school by turning right. Forest Hills in front of the school during drop off and pickup, that road becomes one way. And so
I didn't know that.
Something like that. And so
yeah,
that's a possible solution. But again, I think you're thinking what I'm thinking is, what happens when they get to the light? Will they be able to quickly continue on?
right. And then the one other thing I wanted to mention is this, that if an email, I would suggest an email blast go out once there is a better bus staffing and or clear changes about exposure on a bus being written out and just very clear. I do think, like what you were mentioning about some things becoming more lenient, there are people who would literally want to avoid that drive if they could, and they're right now they're not avoiding it because they're just really worried about their kid being home for 10 days.
Yeah, and I think what I'm talking about happened at Tuesday night's board meeting. They definitely made a change to allow secondary students to remove their masks during the school day. And there was something else about the quarantine that I'd have to look up. But that's a good idea, because none of the kids in the high school knew they take their masks off, and they were surprised to find out. We need to let people know, especially if it might have a positive impact on in this case, the traffic flow.
Or yeah, the bus population flow.
Right.
Yeah, I did get a
It's
mask
that on the bus.
notice. Yeah, I did get a mask notice change, but it didn't even occur to me how that might impact busing at all or change exposures on there. So anyway, just if they could delineate it could help. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that. I will pass that on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ann Savage, I saw your hand earlier. You have to unmute. Oh, there you go.
Oh, I could go up. I live down on Hill, down at the bottom. And when I try to go up Shallot to get out right at the end of school with cars all the way down Shallot, the guard there, the traffic is so bad and the kids are running around crossing that the crossing guard doesn't look to help people coming out of Shallot nor coming out from the school. And you sit there and you can't get out.
Are you talking about pedestrians or people in cars?
A car, say I'm going up Shallot to get onto Jean to turn right. There's the cross with the guard.
Right, I know exactly what you're talking about. That's the one place there's a crossing guard.
Yeah, but she doesn't pay any attention to the traffic going and coming or trying to get out at all. She just kind of lets the kids come across and then walks away. And the cars are really backed up there.
I think I would like to spend some time with her. I think she does a nice job. But one of the things that the crossing guards need to know is that they're not supposed to stop traffic. They're supposed to choose times when there are natural blocks in the traffic. And hopefully there are those times during those 15 minutes the kids are exiting.
Well, there's so many kids coming, and then down on Hill Way, the kids Hillway and down in Lamont, they're crossing there too, just running across
I
like
know.
there's,
I see it all over and it makes me very nervous and all the cars. And thank goodness, what I've seen is some very safe driving, but occasionally there are people going way too fast in there. During that time, it's obviously a real problem.
well, I watched someone almost get hit by 2 inches
Yeah, I
and they were on a bicycle.
think a lot of us have seen those same things.
Leah, you have a question? Or your hands up anyway?
Yeah. We should possibly make this the last question because I know we have a couple more things we need to wrap up. Or I don't know if it's a question or a comment. There are budgetary implications to consider, but I feel like signage could help a lot in a lot of these places. Enforcement type signage, like in San Francisco, where there were, I've never seen it here, but there were a couple of intersections like this where you would like block the box and it would be a huge problem. And there was delineation on the ground. There were big signs like everywhere, like this is the statute that you're violating, which is meaningless but scares people anyway, and makes it clear like this is a big offense, you shouldn't do this. Because I know that we've had a positive impact from the officer who was around, but some of that wasn't long-standing. But perhaps if it was a mix of aggressive signage, which otherwise I don't think we have very much of around here, but might be warranted. If it was a mix of that and intermittent enforcement, it might go a little further.
I like the signage. Give me some examples of where these strategic signs should be and what they should say.
Well, I'm thinking of like almost all the cases that people have mentioned, like
blocking
well, there's
driveways.
the blocking the box at the intersection, but there are also like, I think you see this, maybe I've seen it downtown, I'm not sure. There's also like near stadiums, you'll see like event parking not allowed here. Do we have signs like that in all of the like Bryant Woods areas? And if not, maybe that's something we should consider. But perhaps instead of don't park here during an event, you might get a really big ticket. It's don't park here during pickup and drop off, right? Because that's our use case. It sounds like there's a number of places that would benefit from some of this. I mean, people can.
Yeah, I think I just need to walk around and come up with those ideas. You know, it sounds like a simple solution, but we had the situation around Lake Grove. If you can picture where that school is, the road right off the school is 2 lanes and a very small parking lot. So cars would very quickly line up and stop on the road. I can't remember the name at this moment. Stop right on the road right outside the school, go all the way down to stop sign and continue to stop. And they would show up 45 minutes early. And you had to, in order to travel on that road, you had to go against the oncoming traffic. Thank goodness that condition, the roads are wide enough at Lake Ridge Middle School where you can drive. You can have 2 cars, one parked and waiting, and you could still get by without being in the oncoming traffic. But a solution for that, because there wasn't much else we could do, was just we didn't allow people in the parking lot until 30 minutes before school, and they were going to increase that to 15, and it worked the first day. And because once the kids were out and the parents started picking up their kids, it was started and was completely done in less than 15 minutes. So waiting for an hour prior didn't help them at all. It didn't save them any time. They show up right when school lets out, or no more than 15 minutes early. It's just a 15-minute inconvenience rather than an hour. It's a simple solution, and signs like that and communication like that could be real helpful. But I really appreciate what you're saying, because that's something that we can do and have an impact, do quickly.
Well, thank you so much for your time. And I know tempers run hot because people are really irritated, because it's really irritating. So thanks for dealing with us all.
Day after day, I know. I wish I had better answers for you. Things will get better. With doing nothing, things are going to get better. But if we do some of these things that you guys suggested, I think it can make a big change, big positive impact.
You know, John, earlier months back, the board debated whether we should make this, whether we should have a dedicated meeting on just Lake Ridge Middle School or try to combine it with our annual meeting. I think we might have made the wrong decision, given the passion and the concern here. So we may ask you back sooner rather
Okay.
than to continue the.
Yeah,
dialogue.
well, Andy, I think Andy is a great person for me to communicate through. And I know I'll continue working with him and be happy to come back. Hopefully things will get better and we'll all feel it. I think, and you feel like you'll let me know if they don't, and that's fine. We need
Yeah,
to
and
know.
thank you, Andy, by the way, for looking out for all of us. He's been out there talking
Yeah.
to John, talking to the enforcement officers, just standing, watching, and trying to help all invisibly along the way.
A plan I just want to share, and I want to get somebody from the city who is making these decisions about the signs and the crosswalks to walk it with Andy and I. So because I have, authority to do some things, but not complete jurisdiction to do everything. The city needs to be there too, and I want them to see what you guys are experiencing. So. Thank you for having me. And, I can hear the frustration, and you guys were super, super accommodating to me and polite. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Don.
You're welcome.
So again, I think it was really important to try to get as much of this, as much of our feelings out as possible while John was here. There's also written comments that we received that we posted on our website. It has taken up more time than we expected in the agenda, perhaps, or than we anticipated, wrongly anticipated, as it turned out. So from here, I'm going to reorder the agenda just a little bit because I can see that we have been in a position of losing some people.
Okay. Can I just make one final comment? Is there was a lot of good suggestions. I wrote them down. Hopefully, I wrote them down the way they were communicated. But for those of you that have very definite grievances, if you could email Andy exactly what it is that's happening, and then he will forward that on to me. So I'll have it in writing, and I can work on those, if you would. And I'll leave you guys to your meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to jump. There was just to make sure we get our resident concerns in. We did have a resident, Jeffrey, proposed an agenda item concerning leaf blowers, and I know that Andy, one of our directors, was also interested in that. So, Jeff, would you like to kind of frame up the issue?
Sure, that'd be great. Thanks, Alan. I'm just curious as to whether or not there is any interest or energy within the neighborhood association to raise and with the city and help scope the issue of gas-powered leaf blowers in the community. Personally, I find it one of the real main adverse impact to quality of life in Lake Oswego, especially now with more people working at home, and plus the whole issue of their contribution to global warming. I know that the city's sustainability committee had taken the issue up, and there was a forum they held last year, but I didn't hear any further developments from that. I know other communities around the country have taken significant steps to reduce the negative adverse impacts of gas-powered leaf blowers. And just wondering if there's any interest here, and I'd be willing to work on something. And I don't know, Alan, if there are meetings of chairs of the other neighborhood associations, whether there's any currency to this topic. So that was all I had.
I think yes, because a lot of people were enthusiastically nodding, and because I know I have some very passionate neighbors who have brought this up as well, just literally living in proximity to me, and somebody in the neighborhood association circulated an email recently that came from somebody with a list of local landscapers that use alternatives. And it wasn't previously on my radar as something, like, it was annoying to me, my own landscapers, but I just assumed like that's the cost of doing business. And as soon as I saw that email, I was like, oh, like this is a thing I could do to make the people who don't like this happier, and myself as well. And I immediately just like called and got quotes from 3 different ones, and our new landscaper starts next week. So fingers crossed, I hope it goes well. But I guess the main thing I want to point out is I previously would not have said it was particularly important to me, but when I was presented with a solution that was so easy, why not? And their quotes were competitive. They weren't very different. I think I reached out to 4 people on the list and I heard back from 3 right away and I had them out. So there might also just be an orthogonal campaign to run in addition to possibly trying to put in regulations or rules or whatever legislative ability we have to curb it. We might also just want to do a little bit of PR around like, hey, this would be a neighborly way to keep things healthier and quieter. And here are some easy options for perhaps making it happen.
Totally agree. I bought a electric powered leaf blower and required my guy to use it.
Seems good.
And Jeff, to answer your question, there is a monthly neighborhood association chairs meeting that we attend. So I could actually bring this topic up there for feedback from other associations. I can come back to you on it before, once I know it's on the agenda, I'll come back to you on it and see what we want to say or ask specifically.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah. I want to skip to the business that we're required to get done in an annual meeting, and that is selecting next year's board of directors. It's a 2-part thing this year because we are proposing a bylaws change to go from 5 directors to 7 directors. And the real reason for that is, and I think most of us kind of intuitively know this, our ability to volunteer ebbs and flows as our daily life ebbs and flows. And sometimes we have all the time in the world and sometimes we have none. And I think we have felt or experienced that, a lot of us individually over the past year, and feel that having a slate of 7 does allow for that to occur and have others be able to kind of step in, and it doesn't put too much burden on any 1 or 2 people. So we would like to, show my screen here, propose this formal change. I think it might be the first change to the bylaws since 2002. So the current language says the board of directors consists of 2 general association members and all officers, of which there are 3. And I'll skip down to the new article, would just simply say consists of 4 general association members and all officers. The text in between is the process. It says that general membership meeting of the association needs a 2/3 favorable vote of the members present to vote. And I've read the text of the amendment in full. So I would love to get a motion to approve this change in the bylaws.
One comment first before we do that. Some years it has been hard to find even 5 people. So I just want to make sure we don't paint ourselves into a corner. I think we had some chatter about the language being like up to instead of mandated to be a certain number. Is that still the case?
Yeah, it's a good point. So it doesn't, it basically reads as no more than 7. We don't
Okay.
need to have this meeting with 7. The process that is in the bylaws is that we need at least 3 out of this meeting for officers. But the process is throughout the year, the board can simply appoint other members as they become interested or available, and they would serve until the next annual meeting. So, what is involved is basically 1 or 2 general membership meetings like this, and probably 3 quarterly board meetings, unless there's some special circumstance that requires more urgent participation.
And we're all terrible people, so you have to deal with us. It's
4 of us indicated an ability to carry on in 2022. So we would be looking for 3 more individuals, but first we have to change the bylaws. So
yes. Can I make the motion?
Make the motion.
I make the motion to approve the change. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, say aye or wave your hand or give a thumbs up or do something. Anybody opposed, please verbally say so, since I can't see this. Some people. All right, I think we can say that motion unanimously passed. So our next item is to select a board of directors for 2022. I know that Leah Silber, Andy Leonard, and Nicolka and myself have indicated our willingness to continue on for another term. We would love to get some assistance and other people involved, and I'm certainly hopeful that some of the people who were very passionate about the topics that we covered today might be willing to kind of continue that passion and continue in a more direct involvement way with issues like Lake Ridge Middle School by being on the board. Is there anybody present of the 20 people that are still on the call that would be interested in joining us on the board of directors?
If I may be so bold, I hear rumblings that I might want to nominate Jennifer and she might be willing to assist us. May I be so bold?
You can be so bold. I am willing to help.
This is how I got roped into it, by the way. Is I made some comment and then some total stranger was just like, I nominate you. Okay, here I am.
And I see Jeff smiling, so I think he might want to be a little recruit too.
You give it a try. All right.
You and Jeff.
That'd be great, Jeff.
That's 2.
Which gives us 6. Can we get one more from this group? And feels like they want to try it out. Sounds like we may have to go with 6 for the moment.
That's significant. That's percentage points better than 5. So we're doing great.
So the nominees are myself, Leah, Ann McCulka, Andy Leonard, Jennifer Aurora, and Jeff Ham. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Ann Savage, we couldn't rope you in this time for another term. Huh? Give us 7.
Who are you talking to?
Persuade you to join us.
I could.
In favor?
Well, Ann.
Yay! And we really appreciate it. And as I said, I really think with 7 directors, we're going to find that the amount, what needs to be done versus the people available will be more balanced than in the past.
I agree with that.
Good crew.
Okay.
Did we just do that out of order though? I think we nominated Ann after we voted, so we have to vote again, yes?
I did a second vote for Ann. Just she got her own vote.
Okay, as long as it happens.
All right. Well, I know it's 8:08 here, and let's see. Let's go back to the agenda. I'm just going to spend a couple minutes on the Bryant Connect launch. I did post the document. I did post the document in the meeting materials, but it's really a program that we'll launch next year. But essentially, we applied for a grant with the city last year, and the idea was kind of coming out of sort of a perfect storm of major disasters that have impacted our neighborhood, our city, our region, what have you. We had the ice storm with no power. We had wildfire threats. We had a heat wave this year after all that. So we've had all kinds of events that could potentially impact our neighborhood beyond, say, a huge disaster like an earthquake. And when the pandemic hit, which is another thing on top of this, as part of this perfect storm, the association found itself, it had been raised on conducting in-person meetings, and we didn't even have an email database or any way to communicate with people. So the idea of this grant is to really build up a number of different channels for our ability as a neighborhood to connect with each other. And if we have identified people or residents in the neighborhood that would want to be checked on if, for example, the power is out for X amount of time, or in a storm, or when roads are blocked, we can know who those people are, that kind of stuff. So the city awarded us $6,000 for this program. I posted a narrative on the web. I won't go through it too much right now, but it's essentially, they updated our prep LO supplies. They gave us money to further develop our website out, which is basically now doesn't do much except host our meeting registrations and notes, enhance our social media presence on Facebook and Nextdoor. They paid for our Zoom account for another year in case we need it. We're going to design a pretty, not just the postcard that announced this meeting, but a kind of a multifaceted mailing that really tries to get people's attention and give us some kind of way to connect with them digitally, electronically, online in the event that we need to. And then once in-person meetings are reasonable to hold again and enjoyable to be at, we probably will do, we won't wait for another annual meeting. We'll probably do maybe a spring one, membership wide, to just get reacquainted. And then we've also got funding to sort of sponsor micro meetings or block meetings, block parties, if you will, for people to engage and even get to know the neighbors around them a little bit better. So all of that was approved. Nothing that we asked for was disapproved. The grant was 3 months late in the city's process in getting out, so we didn't even get an award letter till October 1. So we really didn't have the ability to kind of get out of the starting date this year. So we're gonna do it in January. We'll send out a direct communication about it. We'll execute this project between January and June 30th. And we are certainly looking for people who might want to contribute if they have web development skills, web design skills, social media skills, graphic art skills, anything like that. If you know of any students who can get credit in some way for participating in a project like that, or being part of grassroots democracy or governance or anything like that, you know, sky's the limit. So if you do know of anybody, be thinking about it. Again, we'll send out a more dedicated communication on this after the new year. Any questions on that? So moving on from that, our next, Andy, do you want to do emergency preparedness?
Yeah, I'll make it brief, given our time remaining. And if you could bring up the screen, that would help. Well, Alan mentioned that we received funding from the grant, and some of the funding went to top up our emergency supplies. We were missing some things that needed some different materials. And one of those things is a large construction style lock box, so that these will be in a central location and be able to be accessed by the authorized people on our emergency preparedness team. And we've gone a long way toward getting the Lake Ridge Middle School to agree to put it on the campus. It'd be a central location. It'd be not inside, it'd be outside and accessible to anybody who's qualified and authorized to get it. All of these supplies, it's first aid and a variety of other emergency supplies. So we're waiting to hear from that. Actually, John Park has gotten involved in that. So I'm pretty optimistic that we should have this placed in the next month or two. And we currently have 8 active emergency prep team captains. These are the people that I'm working with to spearhead different aspects of this program, and several of them are on this at the meeting. I know Ann has been involved, and so is Bill DeBurr and Sarah, Janet Carr. So there's a number of people here, and they also, 5 of us showed up at a 3-hour class that the fire department conducted about a month ago to train us on the new radio use. These are called FRS radios that we received. And they're relatively easy to use and not expensive and don't require any licensing. The only shortcoming is that they're fairly short range, but I've done some tests on them and they seem to get enough coverage to cover the Bryant neighborhood. And so we've been testing that, and we're going to continue to work with our team members to test to make sure we can get coverage across the neighborhood, because the first thing that goes in any major emergency is communications. Cell towers are out and landlines don't work. And so these radios are the first line of communication. But it's not only able to communicate within the neighborhood, but they're critical in reaching to the next level of communication, which are more powerful portable radios. So there'll be central, some people with what's called GMRS radios that are able to get throughout the entire, almost across the city. And also working with a group called LO Aries, the amateur radio group. Bill DeBurr is he's on this in the meeting, and he's on our emergency prep team, and he's one of the LO Aries people helping to facilitate citywide communications. So we work with them. It's a very complex, very comprehensive, well thought out plan. And this has been critical, getting these radios now. If you're interested in joining the team, we have extra radios and training on that, and we would welcome you to join us in making use of these capabilities. The other thing we're trying to do is continue the neighborhood mapping program, which is a block by block survey of residents. So it's your most immediate neighbors, being able to go and find out about the people who live next door or down the block from you, who they are, where their critical utilities are, gas shutoffs, all the things that need to be taken care of in a major emergency. And if they're not home, that you know that where these things are and who's in the house and anything you can do to help them, as well as finding out what resources they might have. So in the survey, we find out whether they have a generator or they have medical training. And so it's a fairly comprehensive survey. Ann Savage and I spearheaded it in sort of a test in the Shallot and Hillway neighborhood, and we got a pretty good response on that. But it requires a lot of persistence and support. So we welcome anybody's participation, helping us in your neighborhood. We can provide you these surveys and give you some background on how to implement this in your immediate area. So, you know, the major thing, though, in terms of emergency preparedness, it starts with each individual and just being prepared yourselves. So being aware of what the resources are, being aware of what you need to do to help yourself and help your family. And there's just a lot of resources we have available that you may have seen, you may not know it's available, but I encourage you to take advantage of them. Prep LO is the primary one. David Kainoa runs that. He's our interface to the city and getting resources from them and in helping us to get all the equipment and other resources we know we need. And the Prep LO's website, if you haven't been on it, please get on it or return to it to keep abreast of what can and should be done in the event of any kind of emergency. We also have pamphlets from the Red Cross and FEMA and other organizations. I've got extras of those. I can get more of them from the city. If you'd like them, please contact me and I'll be glad to distribute them to you. Also, the city newsletter, Hello LO, this previous one in November had a very good insert, a very comprehensive 10-point emergency preparedness and response overview that I encourage you to look at if you still have that. These are names. I just wanted to list the names of our team members. As I mentioned, some of them are here. If you know them and they're in your neighborhood, please get in touch with them. They can provide information to you. You can find out if you want to support them in the activities that we do in your immediate neighborhood. And I put my email address here at the bottom. So if you'd like to contact me for any materials or to volunteer to help with us, we'd appreciate it. So look forward to being in touch about this some more and getting whatever support we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Any questions for Ann? I will bring up Ann. I know I have a slide here for you too for the Urban and Forest Committee update.
Yeah, I'll be brief. So for those of you who don't know, we do officially have an urban forest committee, a Bryant Neighborhood Association urban forest committee. And that was formed at the beginning of the year. We have a mission statement. That our mission is to protect, advocate for, and foster the preservation, health, and diversity of our urban forest. We decided to form this committee pretty independently from any other people, but it was kind of a coincidence, I guess, that the Watershed Council is also encouraging neighborhood associations to form urban forest committees. So we kind of aligned with them. And I've been going to the meetings that the Watershed Council has been organizing because one of their goals is to promote the communication between the different urban forest committees of the various neighborhood associations. So they've been organizing Zoom meetings every month. The other goals of the watershed, the Oswego Lake Watershed Council, are to protect the urban forest and to educate the community about the importance of trees and tree care. So some of the activities are, which I already mentioned, is forming the committees in each of the neighborhood associations, as many as possible. These committees are independent from the Watershed Council, so we set our own priorities, mission statements, and action plans. But the Watershed Council helps to facilitate communication, as I mentioned, between the neighborhood associations with the monthly meetings. And what's interesting, they also have Lake Oswego tree inventory program, where they've been starting this up where they're collecting data about all various trees in Lake Oswego, and they're recording how different types of information about the trees, it goes into a database. And I think one of the results will be they can evaluate how trees are mitigating climate change. Finally, they're advocating for responsible development. So, all of these goals and activities of the Watershed Council are things that our neighborhood association agrees with and supports. So finally, I'd just like to ask anyone to join our Urban Forest Committee, because it doesn't really require a lot of extra time and work. Just occasionally, you might have to, if you want, you can jump in and help out. But at the moment, we're still trying to get things off the ground, and it would just be nice to have some other people on board who we can, exchange ideas with and discuss various topics with as they come up. So there's not a huge time commitment, but I would like to encourage people to join our committee. And if you know people, please ask them to join too. And there's my contact information. You can either send an email to me, to my Hotmail account, or to the Bryant Neighborhood Association Gmail account.
And Cody Sandell, who's a former board member, had emailed me earlier today and was interested in talking to you about that committee. So if he doesn't reach out to you directly, remind me and I'll.
Okay.
She's involved with an interesting project. It's a new bank that I guess plants trees for every X number of transactions that they do. So kind of an interesting angle. Any questions or comments for Ann? All right, it's 8:23. I'm going to cover one more topic incredibly briefly. The middle housing update, and there's quite a bit of material that's been generated since we held our middle housing kind of introduction at the beginning of the year. So I'm going to actually send that around again as a dedicated email with links to the various documents, depending on how interested people are in getting updated on it. Let me share my screen very quickly. Now that I found it. So again, the middle housing update was based on Oregon state legislation that requires cities to allow duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes, townhouses, cottage clusters in all areas where single family housing is currently permitted. So the steps that have occurred, there's been a neighborhood character report that was done by consultants studying Lake Oswego. That was completed in May. At the same time, there was a housing opportunities report. These are things I'll be sending you links to. The city council established a middle housing code advisory committee that was created in June. It had 2 neighborhood association chairs amongst its members, and they presented a report and recommendations at the city council meeting November 16th. The important thing is that next up is a middle housing community forum on Zoom. I don't know how many of you are on the email list that receives that information direct from the city, but we'll send it around too with the Zoom link and such. And that's when everyone can hear what the Middle Housing Code Advisory Committee is recommending Lake Oswego do to comply with this bill. And it'll also be on the website as well as through Zoom, and it's an opportunity again for input to the city as they move forward in developing these concepts. So just a ton of information, some really good reports that have been generated. They're all hosted in various parts of the city's website, so I'll send around one email that consolidates kind of all the links together for those that are interested. And that is all we have. Any topics anybody wants to raise for the future, or any other questions, comments?
Yes, this is the first time I've Zoomed into the Bryant meeting. And I have a question about a TriMet bus that is parked on South Shore. And it's been there for over 2 years. It's a bus that is not used on a regular basis, privately owned. I've called the police at least 5 times to have the bus moved, because there is a law that says it's only supposed to be there 3 days. And the police, I feel like I'm wasting their time, because they go out, they mark the tire, they talk to the people, and what they're doing to move the bus is just the reversing the way it's parked. And I don't know if this has been brought up before in Bryant. I think it sets a bad precedent for the neighborhood, because there could be more buses and cars parked. And I'm just wondering if this is a concern to anyone else, and how I should, if there are any suggestions about what I should do. I would like to see the law changed.
Do you know who the owner is? Do you know the owner and dealt with them?
I have not had any dealings with them, because they are totally abusing the system. I worked with Officer Schwartz, who was a community officer, but now he's on the force. And he said, you know, with the law the way it is, he was very lenient last year during COVID, where the bus was there for 3 months without moving, because they said it was broken and they needed to get a new part. But South Shore is a very busy street, and it's a distraction, and it looks awful. So it's just, you know, everybody has their thing about their neighborhood, but this to me is very frustrating, and it does set a bad precedent. I think if we start seeing a lot of buses parked around the city, then there will be more complaints. I just feel bad every time I call the police, because I do feel like I'm wasting their time. They have better things to do.
And Kathleen, we did receive your email and talked about it at the board. What we're going to try to intervene on your behalf, try to just go direct and see if we can get some clarification or information for you. That's why we didn't put it on our general agenda, but we do actually want to understand the situation better and take the pressure off you calling the police. Let us be the ones to see where we can get some idea of what their thinking is.
And I don't, presently it moved about a week ago and it hasn't come back. So I don't know, maybe it's gone for good, but I doubt it, because it's been there for over a couple of years.
Get your email. I have a feeling I failed to reply to it because you brought it up here, so my apologies. But can you let me know the same email address? Let me know if it comes back.
Yes, I would be happy to.
All right, thanks. I really appreciate it. Good.
Question, is this a minibus on South Shore?
Yes.
Okay, I know where that is. Yeah, it's off the road, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Questions, input? All right, we have hit 8:30. So on behalf of the 2021 board, we want to thank you for participating. It's been well, you just use the word interesting year on top of another interesting 2020. So we all hope that 2022 will move on from the word interesting. And we wish all of you a very happy holiday season and a happy new year. those that have joined the new board, we will reach out and figure out how we get together and pick roles and things like that before too long. But we may not do it right on top of the holiday season. So expect to hear from us. And again, thank you all very much. Those that have hung in there to the very end of our time, we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Okay, good night, everyone. I will end the meeting.